Is there something, and I know this is gonna be a hard question to answer because this is what you all do for a living, but is there something that you learned from this project that caused you to rethink some of your previously held views around slavery from this era? Because it
Mhm.
certainly caused it for me, but I'm wondering if it happened for you in the middle.
Yeah, I'm gonna point to Mira Green's chapter, which I could look up the title, but, we'll find it. But it's basically on, material culture and, I think Roman law. Is that the other that's it, Roman law and material culture, but I'm gonna focus on the material culture piece because, she did something really interesting, which is that she was studying, Roman kitchens and the ways in which an enslaved woman or an enslaved worker their body would be affected by this labor every single day. And so thinking of just the height of the kitchens and where this might have stood, the heat, the lack of sort of space in a kitchen where so an enslaved woman might have been really hunched over every day cooking these large meals, and it might also have been an unsafe environment for her as she was cooking these meals. And so I don't know. I had not thought of it in that way, like, before reading her chapter, so I learned a lot from her and just thinking about the space where we can imagine enslaved persons, and to take that another step, I work often with imagining enslaved women, and I think we don't have very many enslaved women in our New Testament that are named, the characters in the New Testament. But when I think now about enslaved women in our New Testament, they're everywhere. Every meal anyone eats, we should be imagining a team of enslaved workers preparing it, right? Bringing it to the table, clearing it up afterwards, staying up late to wash the dishes, you know? I mean, so it really, really sort of like, it brings your imagination to life with the ways that enslaved persons just fill the pages of our New Testament.
Yeah, I have to say I love that chapter. That chapter blew me away because I was like, "Wow," she went and she, like, measured it, and also I love the fact that you all have the pictures in there that you do, because so often I feel like the descriptions just aren't quite enough, and so to be able to
Mhm.
see some of those things and to understand that, it really put that into context. So I would completely agree with you. I thought that
Okay.
chapter really did was remarkable. Dr. Sander, how about you?
You asked what I learned. I'm gonna go to material culture as well, even though that is my specialty. But in Javal Coleman's chapter on Roman slavery, he talks about this grave inscription, and it's a gravestone. And on the front of it, there's a picture of a young girl, and the inscription is to Julia Procula, who's a child who has died. And it's dedicated. This monument is dedicated by her parents, Marcus Lucius or Marcus Ephrosinus, and then her mother's name is scratched out on the front. And we don't know what the deal is until you go around to the back of the monument and you see another inscription on the back of the monument. And on the back of the monument, it's a curse to a woman named Acte. So we think that it is Euphrosinus cursing Acte, Julia Procula's mom, because Acte was Ephrosinus's wife, but she was also his freed person. That is, she was his enslaved person until he freed her in order to marry her. And their child, Julia Procula, whether enslaved or free, depending on what side of that manumission line she was born on, is the one who died. But we find out in the inscription that Acte has poisoned her husband. She has absconded with several other children who were either enslaved or their common children and run off with a couple other enslaved people. Um, and the curse is just, very damning, but we learn so much about, and it piques the imagination for so much about the complexity of relationships in the ancient world. And so, my chapter was on household codes, and in thinking about that complexity of the Acte situation of fathers, mothers, children, and slavery, all of a sudden you start to see how complicated the household codes really are, or maybe actually how simple they are when you look at the only person who gets authority in them, which it would have been Ephrosinas in this case, right? So for me, this editing this book just complicated so many more of the stories that I was already telling about New Testament slavery, in some really, really good ways.